William Peter Blatty's extraordinary novel, The Exorcist, from which the equally stunning motion picture was created, represented an incident which actually occurred. Even the conservative Washington Post declared that it was perhaps the most remarkable religious experience of its kind in recent history, while others claim that spirits are the cause. However, there is only one cure: driving the demon out. For 60 days in 1949, a young...
The attack is psychological thinking. Powerful. So don't listen. Remember that. Do not listen.
The power of Christ compels you! 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 The power of Christ compels you!
As difficult as it may be for us to accept, the war between good and evil, darkness and light, God and the devil continues. The horrifying rite of exorcism still takes place, often with shocking brutality. For thousands of years, different forms of madness, abnormal behavior, and even physical disease have been explained in terms of demonic possession of a living body by a discarnate spirit. Accounts of possession have many traits in common. It may occur in any place in the world and to anyone.
Throughout history, one method of cleansing the body of evil, impurity, or sin was through self-inflicted pain. Most notably, self-flagellation, steel-edged scourges, hardwood rods, and other instruments of torture were used to literally beat the devil out of one's own body. These Iranian Muslims, or Shia, are staging one of the most violent forms of exorcism imaginable. In an attempt to expel the enemy spirits residing within their own bodies, self-infliction of painful flagellation, fierce chest and head beatings, and the ghastly practice of skull bloodletting are performed. To the Shia, this intensely personal self-torture is paralleled on a larger scale by an actual historical event, the Battle of Ashura. In 680 AD, an enormous army of rival Islamic sect, the Sunni, attacked a small camp of Caliph Ali's family. In all, 72 persons, the hope and the future of the budding Shia religion, were mercilessly slain. Among them was the most venerable Saint Hussein, the Caliph's own beloved son. The Shia believe that only through suffering equal to that of the saints in the Battle of Ashura can the devil ultimately be defeated and everlasting peace brought to the human spirit. The demons seem to persist, creating confusion and heaping misfortune upon the weak and strong alike. Can the force of evil ever be totally expunged? The actual nature of those nameless, pitiless entities history has labeled demons, or the enemy, belong to the mysteries neither science or technology has yet been able to adequately explain or understand. Could these forces actually be engaged in a bitter life and death struggle for control of the universe? A phenomenon discovered primarily in the Philippines and Brazil. Psychic surgery will strike many as entirely alien to the elaborate healing practices of the West. However, the controversial nature of this highly successful technique must not stand in the way of the West's attempt to explore and understand this mysterious phenomenon. When the psychic surgeon is in possession of the healing energy, he feels his hands tremble with spiritual magnetism and electricity. Spiritual diseases, which include, according to psychic surgeons, cancer, asthma, arthritis, high blood pressure, insanity, and witchcraft, are believed to be the result of a dysfunction of individual cells. These are seen as complete living organisms, possessing both mind and body. His fingers approach the naked tissue of the patient, and the tissue appears to part. According to the surgeon, the cells of the tissue are simply giving way to the orders of the spiritual mind being transmitted by his fingers. The sensations experienced during the operation are generally described as a kind of gentle pulling and tugging or kneading, sometimes fairly deep, but with absolutely no accompanying pain. The surgery is performed with the bare hands, with no antiseptics or sanitary precautions of any kind, yet no infection has ever been reported. When the hands of the surgeon are removed from the opening, it closes by itself, with no scar, for no scalpel or other sharp object has been used to damage or break the tissue. According to Filipino belief, man's intellectual or rational mind is at war with his spiritual mind and is the source of all human conflict, both internal and external. When the cellular dysfunction is of a spiritual nature, it is believed that only the spiritual mind can intervene.
I am the surgical assistant to Alex Orbito, one of the most sought-after and highly respected faith healers in the Philippines. As a medical doctor, I was of course very skeptical about the procedure. After having witnessed numerous healings and actually being allowed to touch the exposed internal organs of many patients, I am now utterly convinced of its validity. Every spiritual healer has his own method or style of healing. What is common to all healers is that they must somehow be able to go into a higher state of consciousness to be effective. Some do it by chanting and others by meditation. Alex Orbito does it by prayer and intense concentration.
I pray to God to make me a channel of His healing power. I then utter a secret power word which was given to me by my master or spirit guide, and all of a sudden I am transformed into another being whose only remaining thought and feeling is one of love. At that moment, I no longer think of myself as Alex Orbito, but as a mere channel of God's healing energy. As I place my hands on the patient's body, I feel the healing energy surge out through my fingers, causing vibrations and stimulating the cells of the patient's afflicted part. When in that state, I am not myself. There is another mind directing me. This mind is so powerful, it permeates my whole body and draws out the diseased tissues or waste matters that are causing pain and suffering. My hand at that moment is like a magnet that automatically attracts the diseased part. Most often, the healing energy coming from my hands and fingers combines with the same substance from the patient's body in stimulating the cells of the diseased part. When this happens, I can see and feel the patient being relieved instantly. This healing energy or power within me, however, is not limitless. When it is consumed after healing, I return to my normal self. I do not usually have a recollection or memory of what I did during the healing session.
I witnessed one of the most unbelievable operations performed by Alex Orbito on a 76-year-old woman, the mother-in-law of a military colonel. She was believed to be a victim of witchcraft. In order to diagnose the ailment, Alex placed bond paper on the forehead, covered it with a white cloth, and pressed his hands against it, asking the patient to hold her breath just like in an actual X-ray procedure. The head of a woman without a face was clearly outlined on the paper.
When I place my hands on the body of a person who is possessed by witchcraft, the electromagnetic current of the victim offers a resistance. A black band or shadow on the forehead becomes visible to me. I know that there is a fight going on between good and evil. If I'm not strong enough, I will not be able to penetrate the evil forces in order to cure the patient.
It appeared that Alex was engaged in a struggle of some magnitude because it took much longer for any evidence of the operation to manifest itself. Then, to everyone's amazement, it became clear that he was pulling long and thick strands of black hair directly from the opening in her stomach. Alex had to pull hard, as if there was an invisible force pulling the hair back in again. He finally had to ask me to help him pull it out. As I took hold of the hair, he requested that nobody else touch or come near it, because it was possessed by an evil spirit. When it was finally out, the hair appeared to be about 14 or 15 inches long. A faint gasp went out from the object. The cursed object was placed in a basin of water, which I held in my trembling hand. Alex calmed the patient down and rubbed her stomach to close the incision. To Alex Orbito, spiritual therapy and psychic surgery may be the last hope of mankind. There are so many diseases that medical science cannot cure, like leukemia, psoriasis, asthma, cancer, and epilepsy. These are, on the other hand, the diseases which seem to respond best to spiritual healing and psychic surgery. I believe that we must continue to have an open mind towards these and other forms of unorthodox healing. The intellectual and the spiritual mind need not be at war. The first responsibility of the medical profession is to help the patient. No matter what the method, the important thing is that the patient has been cured. Alex gave detailed instructions on how to destroy the witch's hair. It gave off an ungodly stench and had to be burned with gasoline twice. Even then, it continued to pulsate as if it had a life of its own. It pulsated for days, and the patient returned to observe the ghastly foreign object, hypnotized by the strange force which, for God knows how long, she had harbored within her. After witnessing for the first time the extraordinary events that took place that morning, I began to think how many other afflicted persons there are in hospitals at this moment whose sickness defies all diagnosis and who are actually victims of witchcraft.
The pyramids, thousands of years after their creation, they remain as one of the world's great awe-inspiring sights. These massive, magnificent structures are tangible remnants of a mysterious power beyond our rational comprehension. The secrets they have contained for centuries within their forbidding walls remain largely a mystery to this day.
Recently, scientists from around the world gathered at Chifrin's Pyramid of Giza in Egypt, where they measured the bombardment of cosmic rays passing through a number of dense objects. They concluded that there is a force at work within the pyramid that defies the laws of science as we know them.
I call this energy etheric energy. We've been successful in photographing it with high-speed infrared film. We can also measure it with an instrument which I've developed called an etheric energy detector. Etheric energy is very similar in nature to static electricity, but it is not static electricity. This is a pyramid...
3 years ago, Dr. Patrick Flanagan demonstrated a seemingly harmless experiment involving an unknown energy force from a pyramid grid object he had developed. This was to prove to be the beginning of a 3-year odyssey, which would find Dr. Flanagan becoming the object of his own experiments, of a human transformation so extraordinary that it may be difficult for many to accept.
There have been a lot of stories about the Pyramid of Giza and the unusual occurrences that happen there. In fact, in Egypt, the Arab guides told us that anyone who has ever spent the night in the Great Pyramid either was found dead the next morning or they were found insane, except for Budge, the English reporter who spent the night in the Great Pyramid in the 1930s. He had a very mystical experience. So we went to Egypt and spent the night there. And while sitting in the king's chamber at about midnight in total darkness, a very strange thing happened. I felt like someone attached an electric wire from the top of my head to the bottom of my spine. And my body started vibrating and shaking because it was like an electric shock. I went into a cataleptic state. My body became totally rigid, and I was unconscious for a period of time.
In
about 1 month after the return from Egypt, I was sitting talking to some friends, and the same feeling came over me that happened in the pyramid, but this time a voice spoke through my body.
Your science of medicine is a mechanical science. It is designed to repair mechanical problems for the most.
This voice said that his name was Master Kaskafayet, and said that he lived in 13th century Persia, and that he has been guiding from above, sort of like a guiding angel from that time since.
Doctor, from your point of view in the spirit world, how would you say healing is accomplished?
All physical realities in this world are the result of energy matrices. Healing is accomplished by the altering of the energy structures surrounding the physical body. The physical body, in turn, follows the structure of the energy pattern. All illness is a result, first, of a disruption of energy, followed by the physical disruption. This can occur rapidly, or it can occur over a long period of time.
Doctor, when you possess a human being's body, such as you're doing now, what happens to that human being's soul while you're temporarily in residence?
The body is merely a mechanical device. Patrick is located above this body at this time. He is only temporarily displaced from the body. This same displacement occurs at night when he sleeps. This is nothing more than going to sleep for Patrick. And while he is asleep, I am making use of his body.
Doctor, there's a mountain in Brazil that holds many secrets. Can you at this time tell me of it, or do you know of it?
There are many locations on your planet in which depositories of ancient knowledge have been placed. In much the same way as in your time, you have placed time capsules of knowledge in cornerstones of buildings and bridges. This desire to preserve knowledge for the future is still present among mankind. In the past, there was a great civilization that planted depositories of knowledge in several locations. One of these locations is this mountain in Brazil of which you refer.
From the medical doctor's viewpoint, what is the best approach to spiritual healing?
Spiritual healing heals the energy matrix of the body and brings about a repair of these problems through energy. The ultimate healing is of the mind, as it is the mental condition and the thought which create the problem in the energy matrix to begin with, which ultimately ends in physical illness.
One night, Pat Flanagan came by. I was sort of amazed to see him because I didn't know him that well, and he just dropped by, and I wondered what he came by for, and he didn't seem to know either. He just said, come in the other room, and I laid down on a table that I had, a treatment table, and he stiffened up and grabbed a hold of my leg where it had been damaged some 40 years ago, and pressed on the area that had been damaged. I was amazed that he knew about this. And after that, I've never had any more pain in that leg.
I do desire to balance the energies in your body where your baby is slightly in the wrong position. Your thyroid requires stimulation. These energies have been balanced.
Thank you, Doctor.
He will be a healthy baby. By an understanding of the energies involved in healing and the energy bodies surrounding the physical and the active role that the mind plays in these energies, a doctor can become a better healer because he can make use of these energies and of the mind's role in these illnesses. A combination of physical repair and balance along with the necessary mental, emotional balance of the energy body will result in a permanent healing. Otherwise, the healing will only be temporary.
Doctor, can you foretell the future? Can you say what's going to happen to the planet Earth and to mankind?
It is possible to foretell certain events, as the evolution of man is very carefully programmed and pre-planned within loose limits. Your planet will be experiencing in the near future some disasters, but these disasters must not be worrying, because these disasters are a cleansing of your planet. It is possible to foretell many things, but it is best for mankind on this planet not to know too far in advance of his future. Peace be with you.
Some time ago, Master Cascafayette told me to shave my head. I told Eve that this time he had gone too far and that I would not shave my head no matter what. I had decided that did not want to do anything that looked freaky to other people. And he told me that the reason he wanted me to shave my head was because daylight striking certain centers on the top of my head, acupuncture meridians and things like this, would stimulate psychic energies. And after I had been sunbathing my head for a few weeks, a new master came in while I was giving a lecture one evening. A completely new master. He has yet to actually give his name, except that I understand that his voice is considerably different from Master Cascafayette's, and he's supposed to be a higher master. I cannot explain the phenomena. I did not believe this sort of thing was possible. I do have a scientific background, and of course I don't believe in things unless I experience them, and now I'm experiencing this, and I don't believe it.
Good evening. I am very pleased to be with you. Do you have any questions?
Edgar Casey, who died in 1944, was known as the sleeping prophet for performing miraculous feats while in trance-like states of possession, similar to those of Patrick Flanagan, decades before technology was to produce the laser. Casey asserted that the ancient civilization of Atlantis had utilized crystals as a power source. He specified the Bimini area of the Bahamas as the center of this phenomenal energy.
In this section of the Atlantic between Florida, Bermuda, and the waters just past Puerto Rico lies the region we have come to refer to as the Bermuda or Devil's Triangle. With good reason. It is here that more than 100 planes and ships have literally vanished into thin air, most of them since 1945. Although more than 1,000 people have been lost, not a single body has ever been recovered. The only verifiable data available suggests that these crafts encountered unusual magnetic aberrations and an electrical drain just before they disappeared, as well as a tug of war with unknown forces. While exploring this area, Dr. Ray Brown, a physician and amateur diver, made what may be the most amazing discovery of all.
We found heavy magnetometer readings. From these readings, we were able to determine ferrous metal underneath the water. We hoped to find cannon of Spanish galleon. As it turned out, all we found was sand, and we returned immediately to Miami, discouraged but determined to come back with heavier equipment and find out what it was that made the large magnetic readings underwater. And after gassing up at Bimini and leaving for the diving area, we encountered a very severe storm, as violent as any hurricane can possibly be, and we spent a miserable night hanging onto a tiny island. The waves were coming in over our heads at times, and we used scuba gear to breathe. And in the morning, we found most of our gear scattered or lost. But since we had traveled a long ways and were ready to dive, we decided we'd dive in spite of murky water, heavy waves, and all the adverse conditions. After getting out over the water, we found we could see from the surface the outline of buildings and structures. The divers were all excited, and I was the last one in the water, the slowest to get my gear on. And underwater, I discovered a fantastic thing. It was a pyramid. Above the sand, I could see 90 feet. Through murky water, we found a dust-like condition that made the water a gold color. As I swam around this structure, I found an opening, and upon examining my thoughts to find out it was real, touching it, I decided to enter the building, and inside, in a rectangular-shaped room, found a scene which is etched sharply in my mind. In the center of the room, I found a pedestal. There was a gold-colored rod hanging from the ceiling with a red stone on the end of it. This gold rod attracted my attention, and I swam up to the top and tried to remove it. It wouldn't budge. Being a treasure diver, of course, I looked at the gold color and assumed that this would be gold. I scratched the surface of it to take filings back with me to support my story to the divers above, but I found out that my diving knife was not sharp enough. It was hardened stainless steel, but the blade was ruined when I scratched the surface. The walls of the room had beautiful symbols similar to inlaid gold, one being a large eagle-type bird. And in these symbols were fantastic colors. The only colors similar to this that I've observed have been in gold porcelain. And the room was just beautiful. I felt the past talking to me, as though the past was all of a sudden permeating my body. I could feel the present moment and past all merging into one inside me. I could feel the people that had lived in the past, the people that built the structure, and the people that had participated in the ceremonies in the chamber. I could feel their feelings and their thoughts, and it was as though I was part of that past, and they were part of me. And then I settled to the bottom again, and I observed the pedestal in the center of the floor and found that there were two metallic-like hands pointed upwards towards the ceiling. They were human size. I could see light glimmering on a crystal inside the hands. When I touched the crystal, it was loose, and this was the first loose thing that I could find in the room. And my heart began to thump when I touched and found there was something that I could remove from the room and take with me, not just as a souvenir or reminder, but I felt some significance or importance attached to the stone. And the minute I removed the stone, I felt an ominous feeling, almost like a voice talking to me, warning me to leave the pyramid, to leave the area, and not to come back. I stuffed the crystal inside my diving suit, and upon reaching the surface, all of the divers, including myself, were silent. It was almost like we had a quiet sadness among us. And on the return flight home from Bimini, we all sat quietly, really not talking with one another and not sharing much of our experiences. Since that time, the other divers who were on the surface, all of them have died.
The crystal has been tested, and electrical signals emanating from it have been measured by scientific instruments. People who approached the stone all felt a radiation from it. 3 people passed out. They said they had experienced a revelation. So far, no evil or harm has come to anybody around it, and it tends to be a good thing, as long as the thoughts around it are good.
Dr. Brown refers to his find as the Atlantean crystal. If scientific investigation continues to confirm the transmission of powerful forces by the crystal, the implications may be staggering. One theory concerning Atlantis attributes its downfall to the unchecked growth of a tremendously advanced technological society. Others propose that its demise was due to the collision of invisible energy fields. Investigators of the Bermuda Triangle mystery claim that alien intelligences may be concerned about our civilization for these very same reasons. Reports of unidentifiable flying objects, UFOs in the southern Florida Bahamas area, have and continue to be frequent and out of all proportion to sightings elsewhere. They've been seen under clear waters, in the sky, and traveling from the sky to the desert plains by numerous reliable observers.
I'm a weekend prospector. I've always been looking for gold, but I've never found any. But anyway, I'm beating my head against it. And I always prospected in one place lately. First time I was there, this man came over to the campfire right out of nowhere and hello, of course, you know, the desert. I said, come on, have something to eat. He introduced himself, says, well, my name is as long as your arm. Says, it's kind of funny, maybe just call me Bill. I said, sure, just call me Larry. All right, so we had dinner, and I noticed he was sizing me up. And of course, I looked him over too, because we were a long ways from anywhere, but it seemed like he had a light or something shining from within. But I just dismissed it, thought maybe the heat had got me or something. And so we had dinner, and we prospected, he and I did, and I went back home, and next time, he was there again. And he kept giving me all kinds of lectures and talking to me while we were going around prospecting. So I wondered why he was giving me those lectures then, because I had no very little formal education. But I would go down to the library and check him out, and he had some stuff there that was good, but it seemed like it was a long ways ahead of ours. So finally he says, Larry, just come over and have dinner with me now. Okay, so we went around the bend in a canyon, and here was absolutely the most splendorous thing I have ever seen. Hollywood, or the Valentino movies, nothing ever came anywhere near it. The rugs were 6 inches deep, and if I'd have had that tent in Malibu, I would have really gone to town. And so we had dinner, and I went on back. And on the way back, he walked back to camp, and he says, Larry, says, how's your heart? Says, I'm going to surprise you next time you come over. I said, well, make it easy, will you? And so, okay. So the next time, a couple of weeks, I came out, and I pitched my tent, had dinner. I woke up the next morning, and here was my car propped up on 2 big rocks, looking right straight up at the sky. And the darndest looking thing, it must have been 13 or 14 feet high, looked like the Wizard of Oz. And I stuck my head out the desert and saw that thing sitting there, and my car up on the rocks. It just scared the life out of me. I just took off like just as naked as a bird off across the desert. This is it. And then Bill says, Larry, your heart's all right. So I says, well, you son of a gun, you did this on purpose, didn't you? He says, yeah. I says, I'll just check to see if you can take it. I said, don't ever do it again, because this is the last time I'll ever be able to make it. So Bill introduced me to John and told me, he says, John, here is a man, Larry Foreman, that I have been coaching all along, and he's finally passed, and we're ready, and he wants to know what all this has been about. John says, well, Larry, I am roughly what you would call the head of the Supreme Court in outer space, and I'm going to tell you why you've been through all this. Your ancestors and everyone else's ancestors on Earth committed some great crimes. And actually, the Earth is nothing more than a penal colony. And you and your people now have served your time, and we're ready to take you off and take you back to where you came from. And I said, well, why should I have to suffer for what something my great-great-grandfather is? Well, Larry, everybody on this earth has suffered, and it's to cure the strain, not the individual. I said, well, that makes sense, so they're going to take us off.
Some psychics give substantial credit for the development of their powers to forces beyond this planet. Could extraterrestrial communication of some sort be a possible explanation for experiences of possession and revelation? Chris Kennedy, a 16-year-old from Laguna Beach, and his 12-year-old friend David Shepard possess a unique gift, the ability to bend metal objects through the apparent use of mental powers alone. This incredible feat often causes the boys to be looked upon as if they themselves were creatures from another planet.
My best friend thinks I'm a freak, and my girlfriend, she thinks I'm a freak too. And the teacher don't know about it yet.
I think he's pretty neat. He's definitely normal, and he relates well to his other friends. He doesn't like school. However, he likes to skateboard, play baseball and football, and all the things that kids his age do.
You just rub it, that's it, and it just bends.
That is weird.
I'd like to be able to do it myself. Concentrate on it and have it bend. Where were you born? Mars? Pluto?
I went out to the kitchen and found one of our spoons bent over. So I asked David, okay, what happened, son? He said, well, I bent the spoon. I said, well, okay, Dave, show me. So we went to the couch and he sat down and I gave him a spoon and he did bend it right on over. He just stroked it lightly and it started to bend.
I've had this psychic powers ever since I can remember. When I was a little kid, my dad used to buy me little Tonka toys. You know how they have an elephant stepping on it on the commercial and they don't break? Well, they used to buy them for me, and within a week they'd be in pieces.
Are you sure those aren't trick spoons?
This one has been a trick spoon like that. Wanna try?
When you get older, you plan to bend anything more significant instead of just a little spoon? Something more important?
Yeah, maybe a flagpole or something like that.
Do you know any of your friends or anybody that can do it like you?
My friend Chris can do it.
He is undoubtedly genuine. Chris was at my home for several days with his father. And in the course of that time, he, well, I would say depleted our silverware and various cutlery quite a bit. And I have the remains of it, and they're quite remarkable.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, I can. Well, this friend of mine wanted me to do a sculpture, really, and, well, I was wondering what he was talking about. So one day I had these couple pieces of silverware, you know, and I was just playing around with them, and I decided to just stick them together. And this key is bent around one of the tines.
I noticed you broke it right off.
Yeah, I couldn't find the other half.
You couldn't find the other end. It sure looks like a junkyard of silverware. It's a mess.
This is happening mainly to children. I have witnessed this personally, and I think it's borne out by the newspaper articles and so on.
Chris, you have there in your hands a broken watch. Would you try to see if you could mentally move the hands backwards?
Why is it happening mainly to children? I think because being children, they have more faith. They don't have inhibitions. They don't put limitations on themselves. They are convinced they can do something. The result is they can do it. Whereas the adult thinks otherwise, and he does impose limitations on himself. So the child is way ahead.
You also bent the TV antennas, the TV rack, magazine rack, and a bird cage, and all of our camping gear we had on the floor without even being within 6 feet of it. Can you explain how that happened?
Well, I guess it was sort of like an overcharge of energy. All my energy that I was pouring into the fork was just flying past it. And that's the way it happened, I guess.
Did you direct that energy?
No.
It just accidentally happened in that direction that you were working on. Well, I certainly hope you pointed in the right direction all the time.
I have witnessed not only Chris, who is 16, and David Shepard, who is 12. I have also seen a 7-year-old, a British boy, do similar things. There is a 5-year-old in Japan, a girl, who can move heavy objects by the power of her mind, and in a few days I shall be investigating a 3-year-old.
That's weird.
What does your mother do, ruining all the spoons?
We keep on buying new stuff.
Well, we have raised him with a very open mind towards everything. And we haven't told him that he actually can't do anything. And when he then goes to bend spoons or anything, if that the negative vibes are there, then nothing will happen. They have to be positive vibes there. This is one of the main things we have found, that any at all of that, your negativity kills it right there.
I think the power that I use for bending spoons and metal objects is the same power to be used for psychic surgery and healing. I feel that if I could do this, it would be a great help to people, and I'm willing to help people get started on this.
Like, I want to know that you could, like, straighten the spoon by bending.
What for? What?
That could be useful, though.
How?
Well, suppose you got this is something small, but suppose you got a bent nail, you can just unbend it. If it stays strong, but like if... When you get stronger, though, no. Like a dent in a car, you might be able to force it out.
We really don't understand the energy that David has at this time, and we would certainly love to have it tested by some college or something so we could find out exactly what it is, and then find out what he can do with it for the betterment of everybody concerned.
Throughout history, psychics, visionaries, mystics, and saints have told us that we possess the ability to accomplish whatever we can dream, and that only self-imposed limitations prohibit us from doing so. This understanding may be the first and most important step toward removing the veil which separates us from our full potential. Until then, man may continue to view those unknown and secret parts of himself as possession. However, what is inside of something can hardly be said to possess it. Perhaps what we consider spirits or strange forces are simply a part of us that we have yet to correctly understand. Whatever is manifesting within us is something we possess, rather than something that possesses us. This increased awareness may lead to a new age of self-discovery, and perhaps someday, deep within this world of the unknown, we may finally come face to face with the greatest mystery and phenomenon of all, ourselves.